What's up, guys? We have Javontae here. He's an athlete who recovered from ACL reconstruction surgery and now is playing overseas. And we're going to get a good perspective on not only the physical aspect of recovering through physical therapy and all the training that he did, but also the mental aspect of it. So let's just jump onto it. Kind of tell us about who you are, Javontae, for the people that don't know you.
Javontae Hawkins, originally from Flint, Michigan, but I reside here in Los Angeles with my wife, and been here for the past 5 years now, and currently entering my 6th year professionally. I'm going to France, playing for a team called Lopez, CSP, a team full of rich history in European basketball. Played EuroLeague. They had a lot of NBA players that came over there and played throughout the years. And I played past 3 years in Germany, played my 2nd year in Greece, my 1st year in Finland. And so here to, talk with Marco and, just about the whole ACL injury that I experienced about 1.5 years ago, going on 2 years actually, and how I recovered and how I overcame it mentally and physically. So.
Yeah, man. So quite a resume overseas right here, man. But yeah, let's just jump into it. Do you remember the day that you tore your ACL, Javontae?
Yeah, I actually do. I remember the day like it was yesterday. I actually tore it against my former team playing in the preseason. I was playing with a team in Ludwigsburg called MHP Reason. And I remember the play like it was yesterday. I took a dribble, took a hard dribble, picked up my dribble, and took a 1 step with my right leg, then took the step with my left leg, but I felt like I couldn't get no lift, and my shoes were like, the Nike shoe, they were full of grip. No, nothing against Nike. They're definitely, you like Nike, go for it. I'm a Puma guy now, so. But if you like Nike, go for it. But I couldn't get no lift, and at first, I thought I hyperextended my knee, because I really never felt no pain like that before. But it was like a pop. I just heard a pop. Like I felt the pop, and I was in denial. I was like, yeah, I hyperextended really bad. Then after a while, I was like, nah, this is an ACL. It's an ACL tear. After like 5 seconds, I screamed. And then after that, I literally, like, no joke, I tell this story all the time. I literally went in recovery mode. Like, I literally went and like, oh, I got to get back right. I got to rehab. I'm going to be out. I got to have surgery. Literally all while on the floor getting helped up. Like, usually guys give you like a moment to gather yourself. And that was my mindset. Like, oh, I got to rehab. Like, and because I'm big on the body. I'm not just the athlete. I'm big on like, just taking care of the body and stuff like that. And yeah, I just went in rehab mode, but it was one of those things that I definitely never forget because it was the first surgery and the first major injury I had.
Yeah, man. I love how you kind of described it. I feel like everyone knows exactly what happened. It's like back to that day. But let me ask you this. I know you kind of thought it was like, oh, I hyperextended. I think it's ACL. When did you really find out it was an ACL? Because there's still kind of hope. You're like, you know what? It might not be ACL, because you don't have the MR.
I found out really when I woke up that morning. I kind of like diagnosed myself, after you get to Googling things and Googling symptoms and stuff like that. So I felt like my knee was swollen. I couldn't walk. A lot of water in the knee, that's what I felt. And it was just difficult for me to just put pressure on it. And that's when I knew, like, it was a torn ACL. So then when I went to the doctor, like a couple hours later, and I got the MRI, it was definitely a torn ACL and meniscus. So I knew right then and there I had to get surgery. Yeah.
Yeah, man. And then once you found that out, it wasn't a surprise to you, right? Because I know a lot of athletes, they're kind of like you said, denial. They're like, it's probably not the ACL, but you said it was an ACL. So when they told you, they confirmed it, you weren't really shocked, right? Like you knew that you're like, hey, what's the next step, right? Or what went through your mind when they kind of told you ACL meniscus?
Yeah, it was more so like what's the next step? Like I knew it was surgery. I wasn't really shocked anymore. It was more so like I started looking up all these Derrick Rose video, Zach Levine. And like, I started looking at guys that, you know, really went through it. And I started asking questions. Like my trainer back home, Gregory Burks, who I trained with since I was a kid. He tore his ACL in college. And, you know, I just started to ask questions, and I reached out to Will Clyburn, who actually told me about you guys with the basketball doctors. I reached out to him, a good friend who plays EuroLeague, and because he tore his, and he was at the highest of his peak, and I felt like I tore mine at the highest of my peak going into, you know, my basketball career, like entering into my prime. And when I took his advice more because he's like a couple years older than me, and he was literally like a phone call away. So he definitely helped me out, and he was playing with Sheska Moscow during that time, and he came back like how I came back the next year, and like dunking still, but you can tell he came back with a different type of pace. He had quicker footwork, he had quicker mobility, and he knew how to land. I never knew how to land but before I tore my ACL. So that was very important. Like in the core, like having my core intact. I had a weak core, and like even now today, I work on core every day. If not every day, I work on like probably 5 days out the week. So that really was the process going in after hearing the news from the doctor.
No, that's awesome, man. And I think that's a big thing that people need to have, like a support system. Like you said, you had Will, you had your trainer, like some people that have went through it. Because, you know, you could Google, like you said, you Google it, but if you Google it, most of the time people don't really talk about their success.
Right.
Always document like, oh man, I was never the same, you know, and stuff like that. And it kind of messes up with your mind. But I'm pumped that you were able to, you know, use that as an opportunity to reach out. Let me talk to people that overcame it. And that's why kind of what we did this podcast, to kind of talk to people that overcame that ACL injury and are performing at the next level there. So let's kind of go into your recovery. What was the hardest thing through the recovery process? Was there, you know, what part of it was like, man, this is tough? Can you tell me more about that?
I would say the mental first. The mental was difficult because now you're going through something that you never went through before. You have to, people don't understand that who haven't tore their ACL, you have to do things like right after, like surgery. You have to like start trying to lift your legs, start trying to strengthen, feel your quad muscles and strengthening those. Like you have to do the small exercises were the worst. And, you know, like, but mentally I had to train my mind, like, okay, today is the day that I'm going to mentally tell myself to just try a little bit harder, you know, and because there's going to be days you wake up and your legs going to be stiff. You're going to feel like you can't do anything. You want to text the trainer, like, oh, I can't go today, you know? So it's like, I really had, the mental was difficult for me, but I really had to be mentally strong during that time. And like you said, like having a support system is the best thing to have, because doing it by yourself is going to definitely put a lot of stress on your mind and put a lot of stress on your body. But the first couple like weeks, first month was the most difficult part for me, for sure.
No, I mean, that's kind of what everyone says is the mental, like, you know, it's a lot of things you need. I think we always think like, oh, it's just going to go uphill. There's never, but it's kind of like ups and downs. Like we're going to be perfect. But overall, at the end of the month, you're like, oh, I'm better off than I was at the start of the month. Let me tell you this, you know, like you mentioned the mental, what kind of helped you stay the course? Was it like, you know, you going back onto the court, you're like, man, I need to go prove those people that are going to say, I'm not going to be able to go back onto it. Like what kind of helped you get through those days that you mentioned? Like sometimes you wanted to tell the trainers like, hey, you know what, I'm not going in today, or like, I don't want to do what kind of helped you get there?
What helped me really was not trying to prove anything to no one. It was more so trying to prove things to myself. I was really trying to prove to myself that I could be better than I was yesterday, even if I feel uncomfortable, even if like it's some days you can, when, like, for example, when I got my stitches out, like I'm like, oh, this is a good step in a new direction. I can do a little bit more now. Because, you know, with stitches, you couldn't really do as much. So when I got my stitches out, yeah, I can do a little bit more. And then after 2 weeks later, after having the stitches out, it's like, oh man, like I can't do nothing today. And it's like you kind of like feel like you're setting back, but then now I have to go back to that positive mindset and be like, you know what, I can do it, you know. And it was not, I really wasn't like, even still to this day, I never try to prove myself, prove anything to no coach, no trainers or anything. I just try to be the best who I can be, you know, and not compare as much, because everybody have a different story when they're dealing with ACL. Everybody's body is different. Everybody body heals in a different way. With this situation, my body healed. It took me a little bit longer than the average. Like, I know it take like usually like 9 months. It took me like a year and 2 months, you know? So, and I never got down on myself because I knew my story was going to be different, but I knew I was going to have a positive outcome because I knew that I was going to prove myself each and every day that I could be the best the best me in recovery. So
That's awesome, man. I love what you said. Everyone's different. And I like that you said you can't compare with yourself with everyone else. Because I think when it comes to ACL recovery, they're like, hey, this guy's doing this at 6 months. Why can't I do it? But everyone's different. And I think you taking longer, I think helped you out even better because it allows you to really get comfortable with your knee, get really stronger, even more. Because a lot of the times when you go back too early, you're not ready.
yeah.
I think that extra time gives you that extra time to get stronger, just acclimated to the basketball game because you're playing more games, you're playing more time, your knee not used to all that impact. And it just plays, I think that's huge. I think everyone is very different and it's kind of hard to be like, hey, at this month you got to be ready. It's kind of listening to your body and then doing the best for yourself. Because if you're always comparing, oh, this guy like OBJ got back early, you know, like Zach LaVine, Derrick Rose, like Porzingis, it took him almost 2 years to come back from his ACL. So everyone's way different. I think that's a huge thing. And that kind of goes to my next question. I think the hardest part a lot of the time after an ACL is, you know, you go through the first couple months, you're like, oh man, I'm strengthening, I could walk fine.
Yeah.
But then there's a different monster. It's like, hey, I need to get back to jumping. I need to get back to basketball.
Right.
What move or what was some of the hardest things during that stage? Because it's kind of scary too. You know, like your first time jumping, first time cutting. What kind of goes through your mind, and what was some of the hardest ones, most difficult parts of that return to basketball kind of phase?
The hardest part was just trying not to have those flashbacks, because you have, like, I don't think, you know, when people say we have flashbacks, this, that, and the other, they think it's not a real thing. That's a real thing. You can do a workout or even like you can do cutting drills and you just have a flashback of like you tearing your ACL, and those are real. And like it goes back to what I said before, is like you got to be positive about everything. Like you got to have trust. You got to have the trust on, and not just trust to do it the right way, because it's going to be days where, you know, you're not going to do things the right way with the training exercise. There's going to be days where you're not going to have a good day, you know, and that's okay. And people have to understand it's all a part of the process. And that's what months and weeks of recovery is for. And the exercises are for to just get better each and every day. I remember when me and you were working out and I had trouble landing, you know, and I remember after when we would do the videos, you would send me the videos and I just like study the videos, like, why am I so timid or why am I hesitant on landing? And I'll just go for it, you know? And I remember you used to always encourage me and you're like, you got it, or we can do it then. Or even if I feel like I do it halfway, I do it over again. It doesn't count. You know, we never counted reps that were halfway, you know, and that was really good because it helped me. And even like now when I'm dunking, I know how to land now. I know how to land more in a lunge-like way, not more in a straight-legged way. So it's really like those the go back to the positive mindset and just staying positive during the exercise, because you're going to have flashbacks, which is normal. but it's about overcoming those things and just staying positive to yourself. It's okay. I know some people probably don't feel comfortable talking to themselves, but hey, I do it more often now than anything because it helps me. You know, do whatever helps you to be comfortable during uncomfortable situations.
Awesome, man. I love that. It's that positive mindset,
Yeah.
keep moving forward. And like you said, those flashbacks are real, man, because you're like,
Yeah.
man, is my knee gonna hold up? It's like that mental
Right.
and
Yeah.
physical. Like your knee could be strong, but if you don't trust your knee and not kind of perfect that, it's a huge thing. And it's also big on a landing. You know, I tell people like after an ACL, it's kind of easy to jump. Like, okay, jump. But
Yeah.
if you land, you're like, oh damn, like I gotta
Yeah.
absorb this and everything. So it kind of freaks people out. And speaking about, freaking out, was there any time that you had like a negative, or not a negative mindset, but like, you kind of question, hey, should I just not go through this? Like, what, I might not, make it all the way, or I might not feel the same. Was there any process when you were training, you're like, hey, you know what, I might not be the same coming back? Did that ever cross your mind?
For sure. But not as often as people would think it would, but because I'm a pretty, positive guy.
Yeah.
But for sure, I'm human. You know, it definitely crossed my mind a few times where like, oh man, I never get back to who I used to be. But when you train your mind to think in a positive way and you train your body to just do it, even if it's boring, do it over and over until you get it right. Even if you get it right one time out of 20 times, you got it right, so I just really, I really trained my mind and my body to I trained my body to listen to my mind. If I felt pain or discomfort, I wouldn't do anything. But if I felt like I I couldn't get it right, and I would continue to try. Like, so it's more so, like I said, like everything, like I said, is probably repetitive, but that mindset thing is big because like it was plenty of days where I was like, oh man, even I tell my wife, like, yeah, today is not the day. Like I can't, like I could hear the scar tissue cracking and stuff like that. Then I'm Googling, like, do I supposed to have scar tissue in month 6? Or do I supposed to hear my leg crack in month? And it's all like, even to this day, like sometimes I still hear like scar tissue still, but it's normal. Like it's nothing, like it comes with, and you, like, I know people gets to Googling things, but you can't really trust the things that you Googled. You can just trust your body because like, sometimes I have like the scar tissue still like will crack or this, that, and the other. But I know that I know that I strengthened my core to the point where it's the strongest ever. I know that I strengthened my hamstrings, my quads, and my hips as well, to where I feel like my knee is secure, to where I feel like it's kind of like almost impossible to go through that again because I know what to do now and how to treat my body. So yeah, it's definitely normal to have those days, and I've definitely had those days plenty of times. So
awesome, man. And I love how you said that. It's just like sometimes Google's your worst enemy. You get scared, freaked out, all that stuff. And I think, like you said, putting in the work will almost make this impossible just because you probably strengthen the leg even more than you ever have. So that kind of leads me to the next question. The first time you went to the basketball court and played your first 5-on-5 game, tell me about that. Were you nervous? Were you kind of like, oh man, my knee? Like, what went through your mind?
Really, I did it in a way where I started 1-on-1, 2-on-2, 3-on-3, 4-on-4, 5-on-5. So I think for me, that works for me. I don't know, somebody may be feeling like they're ready to jump into 5-on-5, and that's okay, but for me, I wanted to do 1-on-1. So I'll start with 1-on-1s. So I started 1-on-1s with light contact with like coaches, and they'll probably like touch me or stuff on my finishes to, make sure that I'm comfortable. And I think that helped me to know that I have some type of defense or some type of contact on me or pushing on me, even when I'm in the air or something like that. It felt comfortable. So then I went from that, playing against coaches, to playing against like teammates and stuff like that. Then now that got me comfortable playing 1-on-1. So now I do 2-on-2, 3-on-3, all the same thing, but 5-on-5 is kind of like a different pace because you're going up and down. But it was, I would say, one thing, I was in shape. I felt like I was in shape. I didn't feel winded at all because I was doing a lot of assault bikes. I was doing a lot of sprints. So I felt really in shape doing 5-on-5 in practice, but game shape is kind of different. So my first game, when I played in December after a year and 2 months of being out, I was probably anxious. I was really, really anxious. I probably had like 4 points. I didn't score nothing from the field. I had like 4 free throws. I made all my free throws, which is good. But like, it was one time I went back door and I had a dunk, but I reversed it. I got fouled, but I actually could have dunked on the guy. So, and you fast forward to February when you see me go baseline, and I actually dunked on 2 guys.
Crazy. Yeah.
So it was like I kept gaining the confidence, and when my teammates was like, "Oh, you could have dunked," and I'm like, "Oh, I am, and I'm doing contact now. So yeah, you're right. It's okay to dunk." So then when I heard that, I took that and I ran with it. And then in February, I dunked on 2 people, and I low-key like kind of shocked myself. I mean, I've done it before, but I shocked myself. I never done it after, an ACL reconstruction. So, I mean, I think just the confidence, just having confidence in yourself, like during 5-on-5, during contact, like you should just, and it's easier said than done. Like, everybody has a different confidence level to them, but like just having that confidence and knowing that it's okay to, if you put the work in, you feel like you put the work in during rehab, I feel like you'll be fine.
Yeah, I mean, that's the biggest thing. Like you said, you put in the work and get the confidence in, but the confidence comes from knowing that you put in the work and everything. So let me ask you this: how do you feel now? Do you ever think about your knee, or how do you, you're training? This is your second season after ACL now. How do you feel now?
I feel great because one, I work out every day, even on my off days. Like if I'm not doing anything on the basketball court, I find joy in going to the weight room and lifting, or going to the weight room, or doing some band work, or I stretch every day. That's very important too. Like even on days I feel good, I wake up in the morning and I stretch. I probably stretch 3 times a day, but I feel great. No problems with my knees, anything. I do a lot of band work. Even the stuff that we do, I still, like I told you before, I still do implement the things that I do in rehab and use it as prehab, So it's like to have injury prevention with not just my ACL, but with ankles, with hips, with back, with, because like everything is connected. And I think a lot of athletes don't understand that, because, a lot of athletes are just like, I was just a raw athlete, and I didn't understand like how everything was connected, how the core holds everything up. And, like if you have back issues, you'll probably have hip issues. If you have hip issues, you'll have knee issues. If you have knee issues, you'll have ankle issues, so like everything is connected, and I work on every aspect of my body. I do a lot of massages. I do cryotherapy. I do like things that I wasn't really hip to. I do it still to this day, and I invest a lot in my body because it comes back in return. So I feel great. I feel really good.
Awesome, man. I love it. And that's kind of what people need to know. It's like a long time process. It doesn't just stop, what's the rehab? You got to continue going after that. Just to kind of finish it up here, Javontae, this is great information. What is your favorite basketball memory? We like to ask players, like as a player or as a fan. I bet you have some pretty crazy ones like the dunk, but tell me what's your favorite basketball memory so far?
My favorite basketball memory so far is this year scoring my career high back-to-back games. So I had a 30-point game, a 31-point game, and then I came back and topped it and scored 35 the next game. So with that, that's probably the biggest moment of my career so far. even overall the dunks because of what happened with the ACL. And a lot of people, wrote me off, and a lot of people didn't think I would be as good as I was coming back. And even with the team I signed with, like I took less money because I was a risk, and which is rightfully so. You know how teams are, and you can't blame them because it's a business, But I took that and I worked my butt off. Like I'm a real believer in faith, so I thank God every day for just allowing me to wake up and have mobility in my limbs, and like to go out and to do that this season, like them back-to-back career high games was definitely the top moments of my career so far, for sure.